Hello, all you jazz cats out there in Jazzland. My name is Paul Toby. Thanks for joining me on a Saturday morning here in Canada, at least. I'm back from vacation, played some golf, had some great times. Today, we're going to be discussing Lover Man. If you're not familiar with Lover Man, it's definitely a standard that lots of people play. And the things that we're going to be talking about first is you've got these two fives, and then it's basically the relative minor of F. So D minor, and then it switches to the relative minor of B flat. And then it immediately switches into dominant. And then it does these interesting two fives, getting back to the major key. Then you got to get back to minor. And what I'm going to be discussing today is all of the elements that you need to remember to switch seamlessly back and forth between those two things. Now, it may seem obvious to some of you, but here at the Jazz Mental channel, we like to cater to all different levels. So I think this is a very important subject, and I'm looking forward to tackling it today. That was, in essence, our sound check as well. So if you could let me know that you can hear my voice okay, and you can hear the piano okay, while I'm waiting for a response on that, I'll check in with a few of you in the chat area. And I can obviously see that our deeply committed people are back, just like I like to see them from week to week. So from Hawaii, you've got Rich, Shell from Detroit. You've got, let's see, Alan and Allison and Dave and Dawn from just around the corner. Sounds like the sound is very good, which I like to hear. We don't like sound problems here on the Jazz Mental channel, so I appreciate your feedback on that. Jerry, hello to you. Zoltan. And for those of you that I missed, it's just because I can't see everything very clearly, and it's nice to see you all here. So that's what we're going to do today, is talk about Lover Man. It's a great tune. Let's put the sheet music link on the screen for you. So there is, oh, one more thing. I'm going to do an end reveal today, and the end reveal is my favorite left-hand bass line hack. Now, this can work for ballads, it can work for swing tunes, but it's my favorite hack. It's something that absolutely, I'm not sure if I'm the only one that does it, but that's what we're going to reveal at the end. So if you could remind me to do that the closer we get to the end of today's session, that would be great. Here's the download link notice. I'm going to pin it in the chat. Whoops, the link didn't work. Let's go grab the link quickly. You are going to need an email address for this one. There's no masterclass, Saturday masterclass insiders deal this week. I didn't have time to put that together. So just go and download the sheet music and have some fun with it. There you go. Let me pin it to the top of the chat too as well. There you go. If you can go and grab that and somebody let me know that it worked okay. I tested it before today's session. It seems to work fine for me. And a few of you, hi from Venezuela. What else we got in there? Boston, nice to see you. Okay. Let's do, oh yeah, the next thing I wanted to do, a little bit of housekeeping. We have to do the final quartet contest draw. I set this up beforehand. It was the last thing I did before I came online. And this is the last draw. So if you could, in the chat area, give a big, sort of big hand. I know you can either write big hand or you can put the little clapping hands for quartet, for handing us 4 complete 5. So we've given away 4 so far. This is the 5th one, complete quartet app bundles, which I love this app. It's great. I wish I could figure out a way to use it with the live stream without that sort of repeated thing that happens. It doesn't work very well. We'll figure it out one of these days. I just haven't had a chance to do it since I got home. But big shout out to Quartet and especially Martin over there. So if you're watching, Martin, thank you so much for playing ball with us and providing these free apps for the winners. And I'm going to draw the next winner right now. So I've got my little random number generator going here. And generate, drum roll. Why is it not working? Maybe it needs to refresh the page. Here we go. Let's try that. Seems to be jammed. One more time. Here we go. And the winner is, get my spreadsheet out here. I don't have a last name. Well, I might have. I'm not exactly sure. But it is Jade from DK. DK. What country code is DK? Is that Denmark? Possibly. I'm not really familiar with my country codes. I know that CA is Canada. I figured that out last week. But DK must be Denmark, I think. Or it could be... Yeah, it's probably that. Anyway, Jade or Jacob, I'm not exactly sure. So it's Jade at domain name, and then the name that I have is Jacob. So I'm not sure which it is. Maybe Jade is short. I don't know. Anyway, it's piano player and double bass player. So the app should be really helpful to you to practice both. Congratulations. You will be receiving an email over the next few days with your Quartet app codes to go to the iOS store and download your free app. So everybody give Jacob or Jade a big hand. I'd appreciate that. And that's the draw out of the way. We've also talked about end reveal, which I'm going to do at the end of today's session. All right, let's get down to business. I'm going to play Loverman as a ballad. And sometimes, you know me, I might slip into swing, maybe for a while, maybe momentarily. I'm not exactly sure how this is going to go. I didn't have a huge chance to work on this. But the sheet music that you downloaded, by the way, somebody says the server is slammed. Oh, no. Well, that's not cool. Keep trying. It'll come back. I actually installed new light speed caching software on the server itself to kind of help with these problems, and maybe it's not working that well. I have a 14-day trial going with it, so we'll see what happens with that. Obviously, some people are having issues, so that's not good. Maybe we're going to have to just revert back to the original server settings, which seem to be working very well over the last few weeks. Anyway, I'm going to play the tune. The picture of the sheet music is here. Yeah. So that's the download that you're going to get. Just take a look very briefly at it. I'm going to take it off the screen because it's kind of distracting because I can't scroll or do what I need to do. But let's play it. It's in the key of F. Things to listen for, like I said, the transitions between 3 different areas. The relative minor, the major chord, and into the bluesy section, dominant chord. So that's kind of interesting. So let's see how seamless this is. And that's your goal as a musician, is to make these transitions seamless. It's a great tune. Billie Holiday did an amazing job at this tune. Let's see how we do. Here we go. Lots of people having some success after a few tries, getting the sheet music. Glad to see that. I think based on the number of people, let me check on that. Yeah, it's probably like 100 people trying to download at the same time. It's, yeah, not always going to work perfectly. But anyway, I'm glad you were able to do it. David says, just switched in. That's a very tender interpretation, Paul. Really lovely. Thank you. Makes one want to listen intently. Well, I'm glad to hear that. Gerard says, majestic playing, Paul, but could you turn up the volume of the piano just a little bit? I can try, but sometimes when I do that, just it could end up distorting. It's always a give and take a little bit with the miking of the piano, because distortion is a big deal when you're talking about converting analog to digital. And you really don't want that to happen. I'll turn it up slightly, and hopefully that won't cause any issues. I turned it up very minorly because, again, I don't want it distorting, but I appreciate the feedback anyway. So the major and minor tug of war going on. Well, that's not a good sign, because if it sounds abrupt, then I'm not doing it correctly. So what we are going to discuss, though, is how to kind of, what's the relationship between the major and the minor in this thing. So let's put up the sheet music for starters, and let's see what we can learn a little bit. All right. So the first thing you have to recognize is in the key of F. And I want to talk maybe for some of you a little rudimentally for a second, because I think it's important to understand the relationship between these two things. So if we're in the key of F, a typical F major chord is this. It's 1, 3, 5, and 7. If you go to the relative minor, that's D minor, which is 1, 3, 5, and 7. But if you go to the ninth, you'll notice that that's an F major 7th chord. So you're going from D minor, F major 7. If you actually put an 11th on top of the D minor chord, there you get an F major 9 chord. So the relationship between these two is very similar. So even when you get to like the major chord, if you just change the bass note, it changes the sound dramatically, even though the chords are the same. So often, what I find to be helpful, at least in my mind, is that the two are very interchangeable. The only thing, in my view, that distinguishes between the two is the bass note. And therefore, as a solo piano player, if you're moving back and forth between these two keys, you have a responsibility to spell that bass line out. So if you're moving from F major down to D minor, there is a way to get there that is pretty common. So what I'm going to do, I did put a screenshot up of some manuscript. And rather than fight with the sheet music, we're going to just put up this screenshot, which is here. So we have this like blank canvas to work with. So let's say we are in the key of B flat. Sorry, F. We're off to a good start. If I'm going from, let's say this bar is F major 7. and I want to get to D minor 7. We all know that 2 5s are important here. However, where do they go? And typically what I like to do is, rather than try to fit them all into the bar evenly, what I'll do is I'll take the last 2 beats. And recently we had, what was it, Dawn said, could you decipher the nomenclature? So these are basically slashes, what we call bar slashes, which indicate 1 beat per slash. So if you put chords on top of this, sorry, that's not correct. You get E half diminished 7th to A7 flat 9. That's the typical way to get from F. Make sure you catch this note. The interesting thing about the A7 with the third is that third typically resolves up to the root. So if you're trying to figure out, especially when you're soloing and you don't have melody, like the tune itself, and even if you are sort of just transitioning, it's is like G minor over E, which is E half diminished 7th, and then go to the third of A7 and then resolve that up. Now, the other thing that I like to do with this A7 flat 9 chord is I like to add a flat 13 to it as well, which is this note. Listen to this chord. And then the 13th, the third goes up to the root, and the 13 falls to become the 9th of D minor, like this. How cool is that, right? So let's go to F major 7. To E half diminished 7th, or G minor over E. These 2 notes fall. One note goes up, the other one falls, like this. And that's what seamlessly gets you between those 2 keys. You can't just, if you go abruptly, there's not much to decipher the difference between the 2 if you just move, because the chords are the same. It's just the bass note that's different. So you have to figure out a way to get there. Okay? So consider that the next time you're moving from the relative major, this being the relative major, to the relative minor. Okay. This note is a question mark. What do you do there? Typically, what a bass player would do, and what I do from a reharmonization perspective, is I go to 4. And typically 4, 7. So that would be B flat. Some kind of B flat chord. Let me erase the number and let's put a symbol in there. Hopefully you can see all of this. Yep, you can. This chord here, actually let me erase that too. And then let's go B flat 7 and add a sharp 11. Why? Because you want some dissonance in the middle. So going from really tonal and then if I'm also moving from major to minor, one of the things I like to do is I like to, what's that, diminutive? I don't know. I'm not up on my nomenclature. But basically, just decrease the volume. Don't increase the volume if you're moving from major to minor, because minor is a very different sound, right? So if you go back to the tune, and I need to switch screens. If you go back to here, whoops, you'll notice that in bar 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, in the last bar, I've got all of that. So I put those chords in there for you. So look at the first time ending. You've got F to B flat, to E half diminished seventh, to A7, and you could put flat 9 and flat 13, and then go to D minor 9th. So let's play this. And you could put some inner voice movement. I've thrown one in here just for fun. Oh, I can't write on that screen. Let's try this. Do a quick full screen snip, and hopefully that one will be placed on your screen. No, it's still grabbing the original one, so I gotta actually take that page down. And then hopefully, yeah, that worked. Okay. So now I want you to focus on this chord right here when we get there. So 2-5 of C. Interesting thing about the G7 chord is, like, I will figure out ways to use G sus here as well, because a G sus chord is very similar to D minor 7. G sus is basically an F major chord, or F major 9 over G, which we've already determined that F major 9 or F major 7 is the same as D minor 9. Okay? So rather than go dominant right away, the problem with dominant is that the melody note is G, so you have to be careful with that. It's like, if you throw a tritone in there against the melody note, it kind of grates a little bit. So I kind of like to float on sus for a second. And then get to dominant. So we're going from G13 to flat 13 or plus 5, resolving down, right? So you're going from G13 to G plus 7, there's the sharp 5, down to the next chord, which is the 5th of G minor. One more time. Same thing with C7. Consider C sus. Again, it's kind of like B flat over C. And then to get a little dissonance on this C7 chord, I'll put a sharp 11. I hope you're making notes on this on your own sheet music that you downloaded. And then the transition here to me has always been abrupt, right? So we've got an F7 chord with a sharp 9, which is this note. That's the sharp 9, which is the melody note. But it's blues, right? If you actually listen to Billie Holiday sing this tune, she will force blues and blue notes from nowhere. And that's what's, I think, amazing about this tune, is that you have these sort of transitions between major and minor, and then when you get to dominant, you can throw in the blues, which I think is reminiscent of the tune, because of course you've got this blue note as the melody note. So if we go from G minor 7, bar 3, and you can use any kind of C7 chord there. And then, so throw down this in the left hand, you've got the root and the tritone. If you can do it. This is obviously a ninth, or sorry, that's 9. This is a 10th in the left hand. So you've got the tritone and the root. If you can do it, that's the best voicing you can do there. And then hit the blue note in the right hand. Now, I can double stop that with the 5th, or I can double stop it with the 13th, but it kind of takes away from the melody if you use the 13th. And then, here, we're right here. What we're going to do is, because of these melody notes, we're going to use a 2-5 of A flat. So this is 2 minor 7, 5, 7 of A flat. So B minor 7th. Now, because those notes, this note is outside the key, that's why we needed a 2-5 there in A flat rather than in some other key. Now on the E7 chord, you can use this diminished chord here, which is E7 with a flat 9 and the 3rd on top. And then G half diminished 7th. And then C7 with a flat 13, flat 9. Interesting. Sometimes, if you're going to F major, it sounds a little abrupt because this is 2-5 of F minor. But it makes a nice sound because you're going to F, but then immediately transitioning to D minor. So it kind of keeps that sound going. You can even play the sus chord. All right, let's play the whole 8 bars and repeat. So listen for this transition at the end as well. All right, let's go from the top. Throw the chord down first because I think it's too abrupt to just kind of like nail the melody right away. So throw down the chord, then the melody. And I think that's how to make those transitions seem seamless. The transition between this sort of tonal major and minor to the dominant blues stuff, throw the chord down first and then play the melody. That to me is the best transition. And of course, we're talking about right here. This bar can really seem, and I'm just going to write it in here, abrupt. And your goal as a musician is to embrace kind of the abruptness, but not too much so that it's so in your face it just sounds wrong. Because, of course, we're switching from tonal to very non-tonal music. So if you just I just got a message that OBS Studio was reconnecting. It just kind of appeared on my screen. Can somebody let me know that we are still live and that you can hear me okay? I know there is a bit of a delay between when I ask that and when you hear it, but if you could sort of let me know, that'd be great. I'll deal with a couple of questions though, and I'll read them first and wait for the response. Okay, I am live. Seems okay. Did anything skip, by the way? Was it off momentarily? Did you see me freeze or anything like that? Because I've got this notice and it says just a blip. Okay, I'm not sure what the connection was. Hopefully it was just an internet thing. All right, people got it for a moment. So let's deal with a couple of questions. So this is Alan. I notice your wonderful addition to minor chords, including the E minor 7 flat 5 and the D minor 7, is to add an 11th to those chords. Do you do this frequently? The answer is yes, because the 9th and the 11th are both part of the extensions that are available. So if you look at a D minor chord, those are the two main extensions. The 13th is actually not available. But if you go 1, 3, 5, 7, 9, and 11, that sounds very tonal. You can also think about it as like an F major 9 over D minor. We talked about that a little bit earlier. So yes, this kind of voicing where you've got 1, 5, 3, 11, 7, 9, and then repeat the 11th on top. It's a typical voicing for me. But try to remember that the 9th and the 11th are the only notes that are available. The 13th is not. Okay. The reason for that is this. It's a tritone. And that doesn't really come about until you hit the G chord. So if you're doing a 2-5, now you can have this note because it's the third of G7. But if you put it here, it just sounds wrong because of this tritone, right? So you don't want to interrupt the D minor chord or any minor chord with a tritone or a flat 9. So try to remember 9 and 11 are the notes that are available, and I will often use both of them is the answer to that question. Please let me know that you got the answer you were looking for. In other words, does that answer your question? Don says, I missed something important. Is this based on the song by Billie Holiday or Ella Fitzgerald or Charlie Parker? Because none of those people wrote this tune, but I don't actually know who wrote it. But the version that I'm playing is based on Paul Toby. It's not based on what Ella did or what Billie Holiday did. The only thing I'm drawing from Billie Holiday is the concept of blue notes and double stops, like this kind of thing. Unfortunately, we can't bend our voices like Billie Holiday. Only guitar players can do that, bass players too, and singers, but pianists can't do that. Wind instruments and trumpets can do it, but we cannot. So we have to figure out different ways of bending. And the way we do it is we do these grace notes, and we double stop the notes. Okay. Don, you can let me know if that answered your question. So Alan says he got a good answer for the 11th. Perfect. Especially when it's added inside the voice. Yes, inside the voicing is much nicer when you think about it. The composer was Roger Ramirez. Okay, there you go. I learned something today. I probably should have looked that up, especially when I'm doing other people's music. All right, the next thing I wanted to do is, and that was the main area that I wanted to tackle. I'm also going to talk about the bass roll in this, the left-hand bass roll, but for now, let's just kind of leave that sit and let's move to the bridge, because the bridge is kind of interesting. It's an AABA tune, obviously, but the bridge is kind of like an outlier. I mean, it works, but it has a whole different sort of structure. So let me remove this, and let's go back to the sheet music for a second, and let's take a look at the bridge, which I'll move to the top of the screen. Yeah. So when getting to the bridge, notice the difference between the first time ending and the second time ending. So the first time ending goes back to D minor. The second time ending goes to A minor. Now, the relationship between A minor and D minor is actually very close. If you actually take a look at a D minor 11th chord, which we just discussed, it's also in there is A minor. So, but if you're transitioning to A minor, you can't use a 2-5. I mean, I suppose you could. Let's do the regular 2-5 that we had in the first time ending and go to A minor instead. You can't do it because that last chord, which is A7 flat 9 going to A minor, doesn't make any sense. There's no leading tones getting to places we need them to go. So instead, what we do is we throw in a 2-5 of A minor. So from F, so B minor 7, and then of that B minor 7th chord, it already has the 7th and the 11th in there. So this is B half diminished 7th to E7 flat 9. Really, you're just changing the root of B going to, the root of B, which is A, going to A flat, which is basically G sharp. Pretty simple, right? Think about that. So this is root position B half diminished 7th. Let's play first inversion, second inversion, third inversion, and then just take the bottom note, which is the 5th of B half diminished 7th. It's the 7th of B half diminished 7th, and drop it. And you've got an E7 flat 9 chord. And then it keeps dropping to become the 7th of A minor. Cool, right? So let's go from bar 5. The transition from major to minor always works well with a 2-5 in minor. So in this case, B half diminished 7th to E7 flat 9. So the bridge then is a line cliche. We've talked about this many times before, and at the risk of repeating myself, which I don't mind risks, you're just basically changing one note. So A minor major 7th, A minor 7, and then getting to D7. Okay, so change to D7 with the sharp 11. Interesting sound, right? You're going from 2 minor. One thing I also wanted to point out here, let me take a screenshot of this. One thing I wanted to point out with this is that this section, which goes from here to here, think of it like blues in A minor. So, and again, you had F blues. The difference between this and going to A minor blues is that the chord is different. So it sounds very different. It's a very different sound, but it's still blues. But it's minor blues. So that's the difference, right? This is major blues. This is minor blues. So again, never miss an opportunity to put blues into your playing because that's where jazz came from. And think about those line cliches. Even if you're playing melody, right? And then it gets to major very abruptly, but it still sounds cool, right? And then we do the same thing with G minor here. Destination chord, move back and do a 2-2-5 of G minor. Interesting though, you're going from B minor to A half diminished seventh to A flat, which is the tritone substitution of D. And so what I like about that is the bass line. Right? Let's play the whole line up until that point. And then another line cliche on G minor, except it's G minor blues now. And then the transition back to D minor. But in this case, there is melody to consider. So that's very different than the first time around. If you actually look at the first time, there's no melody notes in this bar. So when there is, you cannot use a B flat 7 chord with this note in the melody. That's a B major 7th chord. So that's why you can't use it there. So typically you would go, like I said, F to B flat, and then a 2-5 of D minor. In this case, you can't do it because the melody note, if you were playing B flat, that's a B flat major chord. So you can't play B flat 7 there. It just sounds wrong. Listen to this. Got this flat 9 right in the middle of it. So you can't do it. So you have to change the chord. And the perfect chord is E flat 7 with a sharp 11 because the sharp 11 is the melody note. And then come up with E flat to E. So this tune is all about transitions, right? Key of the moment, major, minor, blues. Those are the very three different things in this tune that you have to get to each one seamlessly, right? Okay. Let's take it from bar 5 and go through the bridge. Here we go. And that's how to do that. Martin says, Paul, I'm so late. Got to catch up with the replay. If you just posted that now and you just showed up, you are really late. But you're just in time to hear my second version of this. Thank you, Don. I appreciate the fact that you think it's a great lesson. I think there's a lot of lessons to be learned from this tune. I'm going to play it one more time, and then I'm going to do end reveal. Try to remember that it's going to be my favorite left-hand bass line hack. You might want to listen for it in this version. I decided that because the first version, which was entirely ballad, I decided I'm going to tackle this one differently, which kind of plays into the fact that I'm going to share my favorite left-hand bass line hack. So I hope you stick around for that. Once again, thank you for everyone to entering the Quartet app contest. We just drew our final winner today, and that winner will be notified by email. If you want to know who it is, you can skip back to the beginning. I think the name is Jacob or Jade. Not sure which one it is, but I will reach out to them by email as soon as Martin from Quartet delivers me the codes that you need. Anyway, end reveal coming up. Let me play, and let's have some fun with this one. Please enjoy the listening, by the way. I know that some of you are like, okay, I've learned everything. There's a lot of learning to do when we listen. So just try to listen as clearly as you can. If you have any questions about what I'm playing, you can certainly ask them while I'm playing, and I'll get to them afterward. Yeah, it's kind of fun for me to play this piano today after being away from this studio for a while. I left on November the 1st, got back on the 18th, and I missed it. And I've had so much work to do this week. I didn't even sit down at the piano until last night for like maybe half an hour, and then a little bit this morning. So it's nice. I played a little bit longer than I probably intended to do. Getting lots of thank yous for today's session. I appreciate that. Gerard's looking for a transcription. You prefer the ballad version. I don't know. Again, like I say, I always listen back to these things, so I might get a chance to do that this week and listen back. I still owe some of you sheet music for last week. I'm still working on that. I have to get the right voicings together, but I will get that to you. Let's do end reveal. Favorite bassline hack. So you might have heard it, but if I'm playing, especially in halftime feel like this, my favorite hack is to come into that note from a half step below, like this, and do it quickly. It's like the and of whatever beat before it, right? And sometimes I'll approach it from 2 notes below like that. So, it's that sort of half step below that really makes it. You don't really need the 2 notes. And of course, I'm doing a 2/5 off the top of the tune, right? So try that the next time you're working on left-hand bass, because to me, it's that accent on the and of 4 that gets you there, right? Or it's like the and of 3. 1, 2, 3, and 4, 1. 1, 2, 3, and 4, 1. Or it's 1, 2, 3, 4, and 1. So getting back and forth between those two, but always coming from below. Okay. That's my favorite bassline hack. I hope that helps you out. And it was great fun hanging out with you today. I appreciate everybody that showed up in the chat. I, of course, didn't say hello to a lot of you, but I noticed that there's a lot of our deeply committed people here week to week. And I notice you. I don't always mention your name unless you ask me a question or, yeah. But Dave and Francia and Martin and everybody else who's here, I appreciate you very greatly. And we will see you same time, same place next week. I'm glad to be back in the studio, glad to be playing this piano again. It needs a little bit of tuning, so I'll sort that out this week. And I didn't have a chance to do that either. Anyway, it's been fun hanging out with you. Enjoy the rest of your day. If you're in the middle of the night, enjoy your sleep. I don't think I have any other housekeeping, so I'll just say goodbye. Thanks for hanging out with me. Love you guys. Bye.